He said his name was kunya was Abu Isa, and the Prophet said, Isa la aba lahu. Isa doesn't have a father. So some scholars actually understood from this narration that it's not permissible to take the kunya Abu Isa, but as Al-Mubarak-Furi explains, that's not the meaning of this narration, but rather the Prophet was just again informing on that which was the reality, that Isa didn't have a father, physical father, and he goes on to mention this is how the Prophet used to joke with his companions. So as we see Abu Turab and these other narrations, this is proof, ikhwan, that we should lighten up a bit. Prophet ﷺ used to joke with his companions, and to the fact where Imam at-Tirmidhi actually has an entire chapter in his Shama'il of the Mizah, the joking of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ with his companions. At any rate, because of their revolt and rebellion against the Khalifa Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu and the companions of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and from their beliefs, ikhwan, as we mentioned before, is that the one who commits the major sin, Islam, has apostated. He has actually apostated and left al-Islam, and if he dies upon major sin, he will dwell in the hellfire forever. I have a question. What did the Prophet ﷺ say was the punishment for the one who commits suicide? Again and again and again. If he kills himself with a piece of hadid, a piece of metal, or if he swallows some poison, or if he jumps from a high place, then he will do that thing in the hellfire forever. So the question now is the one who commits suicide a disbeliever? Huh? No? So how do we understand that narration? For his time in the hellfire. Nah. Whoever does that action making it permissible, actually the brother's correct also. Whoever does that action making it permissible, then he has disbelieved. He has apostated. As for any other major sin, al-Islam, we'll discuss inshallah briefly in a second. As the brother mentioned, that this is the jaza. As Al-Mubarak-Furi ikhwan mentions in, and I'm mentioning this for a reason. As Al-Mubarak-Furi mentions in Tuhfat al-Siniyah. What's the Qutb Sharh al-Jami' al-Tirmidhi? I just mentioned it. Tuhfat al-Ahwadhi, ikhwan. Tuhfat al-Ahwadhi. He mentions in Tuhfat al-Ahwadhi, ikhwan, the explanation of the Jami' of Imam al-Tirmidhi, that the one who does this particular act, ikhwan, he is tahta mashiyatillah. He is under the decree and the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah wills, He will punish him. And if Allah wills, He will, out of His mercy, He will forgive him for that particular sin with no punishment. That is the jaza. That is the punishment for the one who does such a thing. It does not necessitate that everyone who does so will receive that particular reward. Mubarak-Furi goes on to say, ikhwan, وَنَحْنُ لَسْنَا عَلَىٰ عَقِيدَةِ الْخَوَارِجِ. We are not upon the creed of the Khawaarij, and those who believe that the one who commits, or al-Mu'tazila, he says, and the Mu'tazila, in believing that the one who commits suicide has disbelieved and left al-Islam. As the brother said, unless he makes istihlal, unless he makes that thing permissible. This is a very important point, ikhwan, because many have misunderstood that particular narration specifically about suicide. And some have even misunderstood the fact that the Prophet ﷺ didn't pray upon the one who made or committed suicide. How do we understand that particular narration? Nah. But the Prophet still commanded that someone pray upon him. Someone still prayed upon him, but he himself did not pray upon him. And this is how we understand it, that the leaders or those who are the heads of the da'wah, whatever it may be, should refrain away from it to show the extreme censure of doing such an act. But at the same time, this is not necessitated that individual has left al-Islam. That is a very important point, as we mentioned, as Mubarak-Furi mentioned, that we're not upon the aqidah of the Khawaarij or the Mu'tazila, and those who say that the one who commits these particular acts has left al-Islam. But these Khawaarij, ikhwan, of the past, and as we'll see in one of the narrations, that they would excommunicate someone from al-Islam for the likes of these particular matters, and that they would say this individual would dwell in the hellfire forever. And then he says, and this is in opposition to the many authentic narrations that clarify otherwise. As we'll see, there are other narrations that clarify otherwise. For example, from amongst those narrations of what has been related, ikhwan, by Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih, Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih, and Imam Muslim also, fi Sahihihi, upon the authority of Abu Dhar, the noble companion Abu Dhar, the companion of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, who said that the Prophet said, whoever testifies that nothing has a right to be worshipped except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah has made the hellfire haram for him. Allah has made the hellfire impermissible for him. Abu Dhar said, even if he fornicates and steals, so he was trying to say, wait a minute, what if the man is a fornicator? What if the man is a thief? trying to deal with this particular issue. And the Messenger of Allah said, Ikhwan, even if he steals and even if he fornicates. Again, showing Ikhwan the importance of Tawheed, the kalima of Tawheed, and what it expiates from sins, until the point that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the noble scholar of Al-Islam, in his book Kitab al-Tawheed, has a chapter, what? At-Tawheed wa ma yukaffir min al-dhunub. At-Tawheed and what it expiates from sins, Ikhwan. So this shows us, Ikhwan, the level of importance of At-Tawheed and the implementation of Tawheed. And we'll see the importance of the Aqidah in the Deen of Al-Islam, and how bid'ah is a hab ila iblis, that innovation is more beloved to shaitan than innovation. Or innovation, I should say, is more beloved to shaitan than sin. How innovation is more beloved to shaitan than sin, as we'll see in the coming narrations, bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, discussing the Khawaarij. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, even if he steals and fornicates. Now, Shaykhuna Shaykh Muqbil, Ikhwan, Shaykhuna Shaykh Muqbil has a tape called Hiwar Ma'a Jama'at Takfir, a dialogue with the people of Takfir. Shaykhuna Shaykh Muqbil says on this particular cassette, Ikhwan, no one should understand from these narrations that we're saying sin is okay. The Prophet ﷺ is not saying here that sin is okay. And that is one of the problems of the Khawaarij, Ikhwan. They take one narration and they run with it. They do not understand the narration in the totality and combination of other narrations that come along with it. We're not like that. Rather, we make the jama' bain al-nusus. We combine between the narrations, the scholars combine between the narrations, and come out with the greatest understanding of these particular matters. So the Prophet ﷺ, Ikhwan, as the Shaykh Muqbil is mentioning here, he's not saying that sin is okay. Even if he steals or fornicates, that doesn't mean go out, steal and fornicate. What it means, Ikhwan, is that the kalima of Tawheed is so great and so powerful that there is nothing, Ikhwan, that is equal to it. That is what is meant, Ikhwan, by this particular statement of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, as the Shaykh was clarifying in that particular hiwar, ma'a jama'at takfir. And then he goes on and he says, the Prophet ﷺ says, Abu Dhar says, again, even if he steals and fornicates and drinks intoxicants, and the Prophet ﷺ said, even if he steals, and even if he fornicates, and even if he drinks intoxicants, in spite of what you think, Abu Dhar. So the Prophet ﷺ was clarifying, yes, you may believe that it's a certain way, but in spite of whatever you may believe, this is the reality of the matter. The reality of the matter is that the one who dies upon a tawheed, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the hellfire haram for him, as we said, unless Allah punishes him briefly from amongst those people who will be punished in the hellfire and then taken out eventually, as we had mentioned, and will be purified in that pond. Also from the beliefs of the Khawaarij, Ikhwan, is that the Muslim rulers are disbelievers. Is that many of the Muslim rulers are disbelievers, and therefore they call to overthrowing these rulers in their statement to establish the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La hukm illa lillah. They always say la hukm illa lillah. There is no rule except for the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Shaykh Fawzan, other than the Shaykh, have said, kalimatul haqq urida biha al-batil. As Ali ibn Abi Talib said before them, it is a word of truth, but what you intend by it is falsehood. Yes, there's no rule except for the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but what you intend by it is to remove the leaders from al-Islam, to make them disbelievers, so as to fight them and to kill them and to overthrow them and to cause corruption and chaos in the earth. As we said, Ikhwan, the history of the Khawarij can actually be traced back to their father, known as Dhul Khawaisra. Now this individual, Ikhwan, when the Prophet ﷺ was dividing up the spoils of the battle of Hunayn, he came to him and he said, "I'dal ya Muhammad, be just Muhammad." On another kalima he said, this division is a division that one does not hope for the face of Allah. In other words, you don't really hope to meet Allah dividing up the booty like this. This is how he spoke to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, Ikhwan. And so one of the companions said, "Leave me, Ya Rasulullah, so I can chop off his head." Prophet ﷺ said, "Da'hu, leave him. Perhaps he's from those who praise." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ikhwan, sayakhruj min di'di hadha ar-rajul." They will come from the loins of this man, a people. And Shaykh Uthaymeen described the meaning of this hadith, Ikhwan, when the Prophet ﷺ said, "From the loins of this man," the Prophet ﷺ, Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned, Ikhwan, that the meaning of this statement of the Prophet ﷺ is that from the ideology and the methodology of this individual will come a people. That one of you will be jealous of your prayer next to their prayer. And you'll be jealous of your fasting next to their fasting. And you'll be jealous of your recitation of the Quran next to their recitation of the Quran. What do we know about the Khawaarij, Ikhwan? They were Ahlul Ibadah, people of worship. They were people of worship. So does it mean now because a man is diligent in worship that he is a man of the truth? Does it necessitate now because a man is diligent in ibadah that he is upon the truth? If this matter was the case, Ikhwan, in another narration when two of the tabi'een came to Abdullah ibn Umar, they mentioned about the people where they came from, that they were Qurra al-Quran wa yataqaffalun al-ilma. They are reciters of the Quran and they are diligent in seeking knowledge. And even with all of that, because they denied the qadr of Allah, because those people denied the qadr of Allah, what did Abdullah ibn Umar say about them? If you see them and you meet them, then tell them that I am bari'un minhum wa hum bara'u minni. Tell them that I am free from them and they are free from me. Abdullah ibn Umar was not concerned about how diligent they were in seeking knowledge. It didn't matter how many narrations they had memorized. All of that stuff had no bearing in that matter. When you see them, tell them I am free from them and they are free from me. Because they are innovators and it doesn't matter to me what they have from knowledge. In another narration, some people came to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal to discuss this particular matter with Imam Ahmad about one of the people of the past. I believe it was Mahasibi. Mahasibi? Who remembers the narration? I can't remember now. Mahasibi or like this. They came to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal to ask him about this particular individual. So Imam Ahmad said, do not sit with this individual. Do not sit with this individual or like this. So the man says, but I am his neighbor. Who are rawi hadith. He's a narrative hadith. And he is a man he's humble. And he's a man of honor. And all of these, he's trying to give all these praises. Imam Ahmad put his head down, Ikhwan, and began to play with the dirt. And the narrator said you could tell the anger of Imam Ahmad. And Imam Ahmad said, Ikhwan, لا تغتر بتنكيس رأسه فإنه رجل سوء. He said, do not be fooled by the lowering of his head, for indeed this is an evil man. Doesn't matter how good his conduct is. Doesn't matter how humble and quiet and shy of a man he is. How soft he speaks. Imam Ahmad said, I don't care about any of this. فإنه رجل سوء. He is an evil man. He's an innovator. Leave him off. And then after this, Imam Ahmad said, Ikhwan, with regard to the affair of narration, وَكُلُّ مَنْ يَرَبِي عَنَ النَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ تَقْبَلْ مِنْهُ. Everyone who narrates from the Prophet now, you're going to accept from him? If that was the case, Ikhwan, let us look in the books of hadith, the books of rijal now, the books of the men of narration. Pages of narrations of people who memorized thousands of a hadith. People have memorized a hadith, Ikhwan, until, from as far as the eye can see, have memorized narrations, sitting in the circles of knowledge, memorizing and memorizing, who have been recorded as kadhabun, liars in narration. So now, just because a man is knowledgeable, just because a man is a memorizer, we're going to forget that he's a kadhab, he's a liar. Put all of that to the side now. He's a liar. He does all of these affairs of evil and transgression. But he's knowledgeable, akhi. He memorizes hadith. He memorized the whole of the Quran. How are you not going to take from this individual? Imam Ahmad said, لا تغتر بتنكيس رأسه. Do not be fooled by the lowering of this man's head. إنه رجل سوء. And so it is with this narration of Abdullah ibn Umar, where he said about these individuals, Ikhwan, I don't care if they diligently seek knowledge. I don't care how much Quran they have memorized. When you see them, tell them they are free from me and I am free from them. In this narration of the Khawaarij, when the Prophet is describing them, Ikhwan, he's not praising them. He's not praising their acts of ibadah, that they were diligent in the recitation of the Quran. You'll be jealous of your prayer next to their prayer. Dhul Khawaisra, in the description of Dhul Khawaisra, it mentions that he had a prostration mark that was thick and protruding, and they said it had knees like a camel. And if anyone's ever seen the knees of a camel, they'll say it's thick from calluses from their kneeling and prostrating into the sand, in the hot sand. Because his knees were so thick from prostrating so much. He was a man of ibadah. With that, the Prophet ﷺ went on to say, they will recite the Quran, but it will not go below their collarbone. The Khawaarij were known, Ikhwan, that when you pass by their camps, they should say they sound like the nests of bees, the hives of bees, because of their humming of their recitation of the Quran. Reciters of the Quran, no doubt, did it save them from the statement of the Prophet? يَخْرُجُ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ. They will leave Islam. كَمَا يَمْلِكُ السَّهْمِ مِنَ الرَّمِيَّةِ. They will leave Islam faster than the arrow goes to the hunted animal. It didn't save them from that statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to show you, Ikhwan, how innovation is lighter than sin, how innovation is greater than sin, I should say, and how innovation is more beloved to shaitan than sin, the scholars use two narrations to prove this. The narration that I just mentioned about the Khawaarij, Ahl al-ibadah, people of worship, salah, fasting, charity, all of these matters.